Well, hey there, welcome to Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. I've got some cabbages that we just harvested. I'm in the kitchen today, going to show you a nice recipe on how to make some cabbage, patties, cabbage fritters, cabbage pancakes. Let's go. Okay, well, I got these cabbages. This is called Dutch flat. That's the variety, and you can see they're kind of flat. They're not round. They feel pretty dense inside, but I found some cabbage worms in my garden when I was clearing out the last of the mess. So I'm not gonna just start cutting into these without investigating first. So we're gonna take off some of these outer leaves, and I'm gonna use for my recipe about half of a huge cabbage head, a typical like Gloria Vanghausen or regular green cabbage. Those big bowling ball size, you use half of that for the recipe. So I'll probably use a little bit of both of these heads. I've got these smaller heads of cabbage. I'll probably use a little bit of both, but I'm going to go through and take them apart bit by bit because I know there are critters in there. I see one trying to get away from me right now. Yeah, we've got critters. So let's get to work. I'm just going to start taking off these outer leaves, and you can see that we've got signs that there's critters that have been in here. And take that core out. I think we'll be good from here on. But I don't see anything that tells me that I ought to expect to find worms deep inside further. So we're just going to start cutting up some cabbage here. I'm going to cut it in half. First of all, I'll show you what it looks like. Dutch flat. Very nice. Now you can see that we do have some interesting little specks in here. Little worm type cabbage droppings, cabbage worm droppings. So what we're going to do is wash this real good once we slice up our cabbage. And yes, like I said, I'm going to use 2 parts from 2 of these until it looks about right. So I'm going to cut around the core here. Now you folks get on to me in my video on making sauerkraut that the core is one of the best parts of the cabbage. Well, I'm glad you like your cores, but I'm not a big fan of the core, so I discard them. All right, so we're going to take this, we're going to slice it up into strips. The thinner, the better. And we're going to put it in some water and rinse it real good. Now, you might think it's kind of gross that we're just going to take a cabbage that's got caterpillars and cabbage worms in it, and we're just going to wash it off and cook it. You might say, well, that's kind of gross. That's why we don't like gardening. We like to buy our produce at the store. Friends, that's what they do with the produce at the store. It's just had the worms and all the pests washed off, and more than likely it's covered in pesticide. So always garden fresh produce is always better for you. In the end, just about everything's going to have caterpillars in it that they're going to have to wash off. All right, I'm going to take my cabbage and I'm going to put it in this pot. And we're going to rinse it off real good. Get all those pieces nice and separate. That way anything that's gnarly in there can flow on through. I'm going to boil my cabbage for about 10 minutes until it's soft. So I'm going to transfer it to my cast iron crock. Fill it, cover it with water, and we will start cooking. Going to need some onion and some thyme. These are the onions that I transplanted and rescued from way over there. Now you can use just a regular onion in this dish. That's what it calls for, but I want some color in it too, so I'm going to grab some of these, just a few, just for the color. Plus, trimming these up will help them get reestablished because the root system down there was damaged a bit when we pulled it out. I'm also going to take some thyme. I don't have much, because the plants are still very young, but I'm going to take about a third of that plant. Just a little bit of fresh thyme. There we go. I'll take some parsley as well. A little bit of parsley just for color. All right. I'm going to chop up an onion. Any kind of onion will do. I like the purple onion just because it's colorful and I like the flavor. Yeah, these are getting kind of old. You can see how in the middle these onions want to kind of send up some sprouts. It's okay. You can eat that. It's all good. I think we're going to use half an onion. Just kind of rough chopped. Because, remember, we've got these green onions that we harvested as well. So I'm going to take the dirty end off. And everything else here looks pretty good. I'm not even going to wash these because, well, they got rained on today. They're clean. They're mine. They have no chemicals on them. There's no pests on them. I'm going to pre-cook my onions because I like a softer onion. Just a little bit in the skillet with some olive oil. And then in go our onions. You don't have to pre-cook the green onions, but I already got them mixed up, so in they go too. All right, let's get our thyme stripped. Just want the leaves, although these tender little twigs, those aren't going to make any difference in your dish. Like I said, I'm going to give my thyme a nice little chop. Okay, it appears that the onions have softened up enough for my liking. They have all come apart, and I'm not going to cook them down any further than that. I probably could have used a little bit more, but that's what we got to work with. There we go. Turn the heat off, get these put aside. Okay, what we're going to need for our next step is a mixing bowl, an immersion blender, salt, our herbs that we just chopped up, and 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and we're going to need 3 eggs. 3 eggs. So our cabbage has been boiling for about 10 minutes. It's good and soft. It's as soft as it's going to get. So let me bring it on over here. Some of the liquid in there is okay. We don't need to strain it too much. We want some of that liquid in there for the next step. Now we want to let this cool down a bit because we don't want to cook our eggs when we put them in there. So you could run this under some cool water. You could just wait, put it in the fridge, but you want it to be nice and cool before adding your eggs. All right, in goes our herbage. I'm going to keep the parsley back as a garnish, and I'm going to crack 3 eggs directly in here. Now remember, we've kept some kept some of that cabbage water in there. We want to make this a batter. It looks like it might be a bit too dry, and I might need to add some more water. We'll see if we can get this going though. 3 eggs. Now, is there enough liquid in there to immersion blend? Let's see. And what we're doing is we're kind of making a vegetable batter. Now what we're going to do next, because as surprisingly thin as this is with the very little liquid we put in there, it's too thin to be batter. So that's where our flour comes in. 3 tablespoons. I'm going to start out with about 2/3 of it. We're going to need all of it. Want to blend this up. Now I'm going to add my vegetables, our onions that we softened up. This will give it some color, some texture, because we basically pureed the cabbage and made an egg cabbage batter with it. Now we want to let this sit for about 15 minutes and let that flour fully hydrate and thicken, because we want this to be thick enough that we can pour little patties or pancakes in our pan. So what we'll do is just let this sit here for about 10 minutes. Oh, I almost forgot. You gotta have some salt. A couple pinches of salt, and we're good. Now if it's still too thin after about 10 minutes, put another tablespoon of flour in there, mix it in, and let it sit again. While we're waiting on our batter to thicken up, I'm going to make a little bit of a sauce. Now if I had some yogurt or some sour cream, it would be ideal, but I don't. I just came back from a trip and the fridge is not well stocked. So I'm going to just take a clove of garlic and smash it down. You could finely mince or grate if you wanted to. Just a little bit of garlic, 1 clove. You can take some mayonnaise. Like I said, if I had some yogurt, I'd use that. Just about a half a cup of mayo. There we go. We're going to mix that together with some spices. A little bit of dill would be nice in here. I've got some fresh dill outside, but the plant's still a little small, so I'm going to call upon my dill from last year, which is in the freezer. And we'll stir that garlic up in there, get our herbs in it. All right, straight out of the freezer comes some dill. Now I saw some fancy dill scissors that somebody had, where when they cut, it took about, well, it had like 8 blades on it, and it was really kind of a fancy little thing. So I'm just going to take some dill here, some frozen dill, and we're going to chop it up into our mayonnaise. Use whatever mayo you like. Don't have any lemons on hand either, so I'm going to use some real lemon juice. Just about a, oh dear, just about a capful, maybe a little more. Just a little bit. Gonna put a little sriracha in here as well, just for some spice. You could use cayenne pepper, but I'm gonna give some sriracha a go, just to taste. Now we're gonna mix that all up, and we're gonna have a nice little sauce, a dipping sauce for our cabbage pancakes, cabbage and onion pancakes. Make it in any way you want, any kind of sauce you like. A little garlic in there, a little mayonnaise. You could use some yogurt, some plain yogurt. You could use sour cream. Again, I would be using yogurt or sour cream if I had some on hand, but I don't. So, improvise. So yes, 1 more tablespoon of flour ought to get us to where we need to be. I'm going to give it a generous tablespoon, a heaping tablespoon. Stir it all up, and we ought to be good to go. We don't want it so stiff that it doesn't act like a good pancake batter, but we don't want it so thin that it just flows and runs around the bottom of a pan like a scrambled egg. We're not making an omelet, we're making little patties, little fritters. Let's let that incorporate, let that sit and hydrate a bit. Let that flour do its thing, let those glutens activate. Okay, I've got some grapeseed oil going on in here. I've got my batter right here. It's thickened up a bit. I'm going to take a scoop. Let's wait for that oil to get hot. Wait till I see the sheen on there. It's not quite there yet. When you start to see the surface of that oil shimmer, you know it's almost there. So what we're going to do is take a scoop and we're going to lay it in like so. And take another one and lay it in. I don't want to do too much at one time and cause our oil to cool down drastically, so I'm going to do 2 at a time for now. We're going to cook till they're golden brown and gently flip it to the other side. I added a 3rd one in there. I can see that these are starting to get a little brown, so what we're going to do is gently flip it. Well, I'm trying to flip it away from myself, and I think I have the wrong tool. Let me grab some assistance here. And that's kind of what we're looking for on the bottom, that golden brown. That's about where I want it. Unfortunately, this one I broke up when I turned it, so maybe we'll just kind of pretend that didn't happen and look the other way, huh? All right, this one is about ready. So we're going to take that one gently out. And I'm going to put it on a paper towel. That's about where I like them. Let's take that out and put it on the paper towel, and we're going to try something different this time. All right, for this one, I have emptied all the oil, and we're going to do it with just a little drizzle of oil in there, as if it were a pancake. And we're going to see if that makes any difference in how these cook. I can tell you, they need a little salt. I didn't add enough salt to the batter. Yeah, that's going to be a nicer finish on these little, basically cabbage flapjacks, cabbage egg fritters. Cooking them with a little less oil, probably going to be the better way. The oil, cooking them in the oil, that's what I saw. That's what I learned about. That's what I've studied, with several different chefs. But this looks like it's probably going to give you a better result. All right, let's see what it looks like. Oh yeah. Finish this off. A little bit higher heat, get some color on there, and I bet you that one's going to be the best tasting one of them all. We'll find out. I'm going to go with just a little sliver of butter. And we're going to go all out pancake on this one. A little butter. Another flip. Yeah, that's what we need right there. A little bit of butter. Friends, if you like our cooking videos, I have a playlist called Ali Sheba Kitchen, and it's got all of our cooking videos from using our garden harvest and from cooking recipes that include things from the garden. Part of gardening is eating our food, and so there are a lot of cooking videos on gardeners' channels that show you how to use the produce that they grow, and I am one of those. So go check it out, Ali Sheba Kitchen. I'll put a link right up there. All right. That's going to be our special one, I bet. Let's go eat. Here is our dish. Look at that. We've got our little dipping sauce we made. We've got 4 little fritters. I really don't know what you call these. I'm just going to call them fritters. I guess we could call them something else. There's the one we made in the dry pan. Just a little oil in there. And it looks better. It's got a little butter on it. Let's try these and see how they taste. There we go. Let's eat. I'm not going to tilt the plate because you know what will happen if I tilt the plate so you can get a better view. It'll all come falling off of there. And I'll be on America's Funniest Home Videos or Fail Army. Got our dipping sauce. I'm going to cut into here. Ooh, it's got some crunch to it. Now you know, I've already tasted them. And they're good. So, let's try a bite without the sauce. Very mellow. Get a little bit of that sauce with it, that dipping sauce. Very, very mellow. You can hardly taste the cabbage at all. You can almost just eat this with your fingers. That sauce, that's where the magic happens. Well, it's good. It's certainly a unique way to eat cabbage. A little labor intensive, but I like it. I can tell that this would be a good side dish, not necessarily a good main dish. Because of being fried in that oil, it does take up some of that oil. And you know, after eating a couple of these, you start getting that heavy feeling of oil when you eat fried foods like that. At least I do. This would be a great side dish. the cabbage, it's so mellow, I can almost not even tell it's there. I can tell there's something there. I do get a little bit of the sweetness from the cabbage. I do get the texture of the eggs and the flour, and very good. Let's try the one that we did in a dry pan as well. See if there's any difference here. Okay, this one was in the dry pan, and I put a little butter on it. You can see it's not as crispy on the edges because we didn't have it sitting in that water. I mean, in that oil. And it is a little less done in the middle. Let's try it. Okay, that is actually a little bit different. The texture is a little less, well, it's not as fully cooked. It doesn't have any of the crunch that the deep fried fritters fritters have. They have a little crunch around the edge, and I like that. This one though has a cleaner taste. The eggs really come forward in the one that we cooked in the dry pan. I can taste the cabbage. I can feel some of the cabbage chunks in there as if they didn't cook as long as the ones in the oil did. Finish softening up. Yeah, both are good. I could eat both of these. And with that dipping sauce, man, you can't go wrong. Cheers. Well, hey there. Thanks for joining me today on Black Gumbo Southern Gardening as we cooked a little bit of what we grew. Would I recommend this as a side dish? Yes. As a novelty? Yes. As an interesting way to use up your cabbage? Yes. But am I going to cook it again? Well, if somebody cooked it for me, I'd certainly order it, but I don't know that I'm going to cook it again. It's a bit labor intensive. I can use my cabbage in the traditional ways by making sauerkraut, doing fried cabbage, a southern fried cabbage. I actually have a recipe on my playlist for that, and for making sauerkraut. So you can go check those videos out and see the preferred ways that I like to use up cabbages. Again, this is a new variety for me. It grew well, nice and clean on the inside, not too much bug pressure. And well, we made an interesting dish. So, hey, thanks for joining me. Happy gardening to you, happy cooking to you, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye. I gotta finish this. It's actually really, really good. Just a little bit labor intensive.